All right, everybody. It looks like we are live. We get set up on my all messages here. All right. So we got Art Knight, Zini, Cecil. How are you doing this evening? And that's all the comments we've got. So hello to all of you out there lurking, saying hello. Hey, Winston. Well, we are live because I got a mouse in my pocket. All right, let's get right to it tonight. Hey, Lex, how are you doing this evening? High as a lead. Not sure what that was, but it's good to hear you're doing good, Cecil. All right, let us commence with the beginning to get started to undertake the beginning of the live stream. We are going to do a little bit of work tonight, but we'll get to that when we get to it. We're going to actually get into the Gourami tank here, and we're going to do some, you know how I get in there with my hose and I vac out all that excess Java moss. We are going to do that. And if you can see up here, wherever the hell my hand is, there it is. Up here, this is my Anubias that has come unattached from the piece of wood down here. So we're going to tie that back down. But we will do the regular old feeding everybody first. We will be enjoying some Blue Dream tonight, although the Blue Dream I have in my bowl already has some hash oil on it. So that is what I will actually be enjoying, hitting off that little hole right there. And it is just some miscellaneous hash oil I found in my truck, so I figured I'd smoke it up. Oh, you just got pearl Gouramis. Nice. Laura, how are you this evening? Steve. Smoke a doobie. Nice. All right, let's throw some food at these fish and get the evening underway. I'm also going to throw some pellet food in there. I'm trying to get rid of it. When I bought it, I thought it was sinking, first of all, and I thought it was smaller, second of all. So I got floating pellets that are really large, but now that the koi are getting a little bigger and the goldfish are getting a little bigger, they can actually eat this food while the other fish can't. And I have noticed that some of the koi, while they don't look unhealthy, thin, they don't look sort of meaty and plump in the middle like I'd like them to. I don't want them to look overweight. I just want them to look rounded out a little bit, and they just look a little slender. So I think my once a day little light flake feeding is probably not quite enough as they get larger. You know, obviously the bigger they are, the more food they need. And so I'm now going to start throwing some additional goldfish, and that is floating goldfish food. It's meant for koi and goldfish. I am excited for you there, Lex. They are exciting. I don't know if you're familiar with the channel or not. If you're new, I don't recognize your name, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. But we will. The tank we're going to be working on tonight is my Gourami tank, and I currently have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I should have 6, or is it 7? I should have 6 or 7 pearl Gouramis in there, but I'm only seeing 5 at the moment. That doesn't mean the other ones aren't in there. I'm just not seeing them at the moment. But pearl Gouramis are awesome. They're actually one of my favorite Gouramis. I did not have a lot of luck when I tried my chocolate Gourami, but I don't really have the water for it, and I didn't really have the tank for it either. I tried putting it in my 55 with all the other fish, and I think they need a much calmer you know, more chillaxed environment to live in rather than a tank with, what, 20 fish or whatever the fuck I got in there. It's a lot. I have a bunch of fish in that tank. I think the screen in this is getting so clogged up, it's getting tough for me to draw on. I'm not really getting much of a hit off of it. It's a bummer. I just soaked a bunch of oil into it. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I soaked too much oil into it and it's soaking down into the bottom and clogging the screen up. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying yourself, Lex. Um, I actually don't have a whole lot on my mind this evening. Not in a bad way, in a very good way. Again, my mind is actually just calm. It's not racing. I had a lovely afternoon with the missus. We spent the day out in the yard, got some plants planted. We did a bunch of weeding. We took a walk down the street. It's just been a beautiful afternoon. And for once, today has actually felt like Sunday. And I even commented to my wife when we were coming home from our walk, and it was getting, a little later in the afternoon, and we could see the sun going down a little bit. And I was like, you know what? Today actually feels like Sunday. It's so unusual for me to feel like the day it is. It always feels like some other day to me. And so then I come down here 20 minutes later and put down that it's a Friday night, Friday night with Dan. Right after I got done saying how it really does feel like a Sunday night tonight. But I did have a lovely day today. And again, not a whole lot of stuff thinking about fishes and whatnot. Hey, Craig. It is not Friday, alas. And I did drink all of the last bit of my mushroom syrup this afternoon. And I even rinsed out the bottles with water and drank the water to make sure I got every last drop. And even my mushroom vape is gone. I had a really nice time last night. I had a really good trip. And I was hitting on that vape a lot late last night. And I think I went through it completely because when I puffed on it this morning, it tasted like burnt wick or something. I don't know. It just tasted nasty. So I did 2 puffs like that, and both of them tasted really bad. And I just assumed it was gone, so I threw it in the trash. Hey, Kane, how are you? Do I keep anything else besides fish? I keep cats. Well, I, for once, actually have to work tomorrow, so I do have to act like it's Sunday night. Of course, I don't have to get up any particular time. I don't have a lot of work to do tomorrow. I only have a few customers I need to get taken care of, but I do actually have work to do tomorrow. So hopefully, I will get a good night's sleep and be well rested. Oh, I also almost forgot about this. I just did this like an hour ago. I actually ordered a mushroom all-in-one grow kit. So I'm going to try my hand at mycology, see if I can actually grow my own mushrooms. And the spores I ordered, I got the spores that are generally recommended for beginners. Not only are they just a really, really nice trip, they're actually fairly easy to grow too. So I got a flavor called Golden Teacher. So that'll be shipping sometime this week. And I think it takes a couple of weeks to actually have a whole batch once you inject the spores into it. I'll have to look into what to do once I actually get it. But I am going to try my hand at growing my own. No, it's the other way around, Art. My wife is into Dan keeping. And I did order the subscription chocolate bar too. So I will be getting a chocolate bar probably Wednesday in the mail. And then from now on, I got one every month, coming every month. Although I'm probably going to change that if I can afford it. If I can swing it financially, I'm going to change that to every 2 weeks because I don't think one chocolate bar a month is going to cut it for me at the rate I've been going through these mushrooms. It has been life-changing, though. I feel like a new man. Oh, that's awesome. Did she enjoy it? I have not yet actually been able to find a place that will ship me mushrooms. The only places that ship the actual mushrooms seem to be. Oh, that's cool. That's awesome, Cornish. The only place I could find that actually ships mushrooms are all in Canada, and none of them ship outside Canada. So I haven't been able to find anybody to actually ship me mushrooms. But I was looking at one of the two shroom dispensaries that are in DC. It's funny. One is like a block north of the White House in Adams Morgan, and one is like 2 or 3 blocks west of the White House in Georgetown. Well, a little more than 2 or 3 blocks, but it's in Georgetown, just west of the White House. But the difference in drives from one to the other, it's like a 25 or 30 minute difference drive for me because I got to go all the way around the Beltway to get to Georgetown. Whereas if I go down to Adams Morgan, which is the closer one of the two, it's just like a straight shot. I go down a route called Route 97 and it turns into like 185 or something like that. And eventually it turns into like fucking K Street or M Street or whatever. And like you make one block left and there's the dispensary right there, right before you get to the White House. So I'm thinking about making a drive down there because I can actually just buy them over the counter as long as I'm 21 or older, and I am. So it said it's I-81 compliant, and I looked up what I-81 meant. Apparently, in 2021, I want to say, or maybe 19, something like that, several years ago, there was an initiative in Washington, D.C. called Initiative 81, and it actually passed by a fairly large margin. And what it did was it deprioritized the funding of like going after investigations and so on and so forth into any naturally plant-derived psychedelic. So the way they worded it, I noticed they specifically excluded LSD. But any plant-derived psychedelic, that includes mescaline, DMT, psilocybin, psilocin, all of them, they have now basically just said, we're not wasting any money like going after these people anymore. So it's not technically decriminalized, but the police just don't do anything about it. And so they have like fucking dispensaries. You can just go buy mushrooms in DC and you don't have to live in DC. You can just go to DC and just purchase mushrooms over the counter. They're kind of expensive. It's $50 for an eighth, but that's what I used to pay, street value around here anyway. So that wouldn't be too shocking. Just pay, $50 for an eighth. I just wouldn't want to make a habit of that. You get them from your cousin in Manchester? If you can hook me up with somebody in Manchester that can get them to me, that would be fantastic. I do not want to go to DC. The only reason I haven't gone to DC is because of the drive. It's like an hour and 45-minute drive for me to get down there, and I just do not want to do that drive. Yeah, I think he's talking about Manchester, Maryland there, Lex. That's I mean, if you're going to come down to Manchester, you may as well just go to DC. It's only another hour and a half past us. Actually, if you're coming down from Boston, it would be longer for you to go out of your way to get here than it would to just go straight down 95 to DC. You could just drive to DC faster than you could get to where I live. Yeah, I have no desire whatsoever to go down 97 and down into DC. I used to have a customer down in Silver Spring, which is an area just north of DC, but it's inside the 495 Beltway. So the DC Beltway that loops Washington, DC actually goes kind of wide in a lot of places because of the shape of DC. So on the north side, where I'm coming from, you actually go on the inside of the Beltway, and you can drive for several more miles before you actually hit the DC line proper. I just kind of tend to think anything inside the Beltway is DC, but it's really not. Again, my customers in Silver Spring, I would go inside the Beltway and I would drive for about 25 minutes, through neighborhoods and, before I actually got to my customer's house. And that's all inside the Beltway. And it was still well outside the actual proper DC limit. But this place is right at the fucking White House. And I just do not feel like going anywhere near that whole area. All right. Where's Shirley? Hey, Eugene, how are you? Did I miss somebody here? Oh, there you are, Shirley. Why do I always fucking skim right past your name? I didn't even see my stop sign either. Thank you, Laura. Yeah, both Adams Morgan and Georgetown. Like, if you go in any of those restaurants or anywhere around there, you just walk down the fucking street, and everybody you see, for the most part, is in service of the government. They're either aides or lobbyists aides or senators or congressional members or staffers or press or just that whole area. It's just that's just all that whole area is. I hate going down there. How long would it be from Boston to DC? I used to run up. I didn't go up to Boston, but I drove a truck and I used to run from Baltimore. I'd go up into. Did I ever run up to Boston? I think I ran up to Boston back in the day, so it can't be that much of a drive if you really want to do it. Now, if you want to order chocolate bars, gummies, I really liked that syrup I got. That syrup was a really nice ride. It came on fairly fast. It took a relatively smooth but fairly long time to roll on. And then it lasted a reasonable amount of time. I get like 5 or 6 hours. I'm coming in for the landing right now from my day of tripping. I'm definitely still feeling it, but I'm way on the back side of it at this point because I drank it at like 3 o'clock this afternoon or something like that, or 1 o'clock. I think I started at 1 o'clock and I drank the second batch of it at 3 o'clock. But I really like the syrup. All right, let me get caught back up here. All right, so I said hello to Shirley, said hello to Eugene. Heavyweight, there's another name I missed. Maybe I'm tripping a little more than I realize. Maybe I'm not quite in for a landing. My gauges are off. Always trust your instruments. You can make the drive in less than 90 minutes. Oh, I was going to say, you can go from fucking Boston to Georgetown in less than 90 minutes. But you mean from where you are. I got you. State Fair started in Missouri. Oh, that's got to suck. Our local carnival is in town this week, so I'm not going anywhere out on Main Street anytime after like 3. Well, I never do anyway. But yeah, the carnival's in town this week, so I can only imagine the little microcosm of the state fair that is. We do our state fair in September, I think. It lasts like a month. Dude, if you're in Georgetown twice a week, you just swing in and get some. If you do, I'll pay you for them if you're down there and you can grab some. Yeah, I don't know what it is, Shirley. I swear to God, I got a blind spot. I every fucking time you join us, I skim right over your name without noticing it until you say something, and then I got to skim back and say, "Oh yeah, there you are." I don't know how I missed that. Hey, 3G, how are you? Ooh, a blue zebra angel. That sounds awesome. 7 hour drive. Yeah, that's a little bit long. I'd go for the mail order. Yeah, I really like those silver dollars. I was reluctant to buy silver dollars for years. I wouldn't buy them, even once I had a tank large enough for them because I always knew they got kind of big. Um, just everything you read about them says they're really skittish, and they'll dart and dash, they'll crash into stuff. And so I always thought, well, my tanks are usually pretty busy. I got a lot of rocks and woods and birds and things. Um, and I'm in and out, and we got cats, and I play music, and I got my weight and workout equipment, and I just that's not the environment for skittish fish that will dart and dash and crash into things. And I talked to a few people about it, and they said that they're skittish like any other fish. After a while, they get used to you, and you should be fine. So I went for it, and I did, and it turned out to actually work. That one is fucking huge. I mean, he's the size of a damn tea saucer at least. Well, that's not counting his fins. Like his body is the size of a tea saucer. If you flop him down on it, his fins will be hanging over the edge. There, he's posing for you right there, dead center. That is a big one, though. Get an eighth for around 40. Yeah, anything like that is reasonable. Again, if you can hook me up with somebody, Kane, that would be fucking awesome right here in Manchester. I'm assuming you mean Manchester, Maryland, like my neighbor to the north. 7 to 8 hours. Well, all right. Maybe I didn't ever run up to Boston back in the day then. I don't know how exciting it would be for you, Laura. Nowhere to park the truck. Dude, just that's what fucking four ways are for. You've been to DC before. You just put your fucking four ways on and run inside. Pay the ticket later. Have I ever told you my story about getting the ticket at the airport? Because I said I got a job to do and I went inside anyway. Yeah, he is a fucking fat ass. He's thick too. When you really look at him straight on, he's about an inch wide in the middle. Inch thick in his chestal region. He's got some serious pecs for a fish. I have been scooping shrimp out of my shrimp tank and dumping them in here. If you'll notice, everything is covered in what looks like green fuzz. That, of course, is green hair algae. And I really think the shrimp will start making some headway on that if they're not eaten. And every time I look in this tank, I never do see any damn shrimp. So I don't know if I'm just feeding my shrimp, feeding my angelfish shrimp, which I suspect, or if some of those shrimp are surviving, if they're ever going to have a chance maybe to come out at night and eat some of that algae. So far, it does not look like they are making much headway, but we will see. So Laura, in short, I've been talking a lot about mushrooms, so much so that I'm getting afraid that I'm going to start turning people away from the channel because they're going to get tired of hearing about the fucking mushroom channel. On the other hand, I also trust that my regular viewers know how I am and know that when I get on a kick about something or find some new exciting thing, I talk about it a lot until I sort of get it out of my system, and then I move on to the next thing. And right now, the thing is mushrooms. Oh, looks like we got a dead platter. Looks like a pregnant female didn't got egg bound or bound up or something. I guess they're not egg bound if they're live bears. Let me go flush this, and I will be right back. I always say that though, but you can come with me. Hang on. All right, off to the great septic tank in the sky. But in this case, it just started out as a whim. I got some mushrooms and thought, hey, this will be fun. I haven't done mushrooms in 20 years. I'll have a good time with these. And I didn't wind up taking a lot, and I had this nice, like, mild buzz, but the effect it had was astonishing immediately. I feel like I don't want to say cured my ADHD. I don't know if that's something that can happen, but like the tornado in my head is gone. I can focus, I can think, I'm calm. I'm sleeping through the whole night now. Um, I feel relaxed. I don't feel like the weight of the world's on me. My depression has lifted. I literally feel like a new man. I feel fantastic. I feel like what life is worth living again. Um, and I don't mean in a like while I'm tripping and like, ooh, this is great. Just the lasting effect of it between doses has been amazing. And not once have I taken a dose that was like where I would really say I was tripping. Last night was pretty close. I had a really good time last night. Um, I think I'm ready to actually do a good trip. I think I'm like when the day is right and the time is right and I got plenty of mushrooms and all that. I think I'm going to have like a trip where I am, seeing the shit melting and the rainbows and the colors changing and all that kind of stuff. I think I'm ready, but I've not been anywhere close to in that neighborhood as of yet. Last night I was getting some good visuals and stuff like that. Again, I had a really good time last night. But that's as close as I've come to really like tripping over the last couple of weeks. But it has been remarkable. And so obviously I'm still just kind of in shock and talking about it like it's the greatest thing since sliced fucking bread. It's amazing. It would be no different than don't think about it as though I'm talking about psychedelic mushrooms. Think about it. I'm talking some new medication I just got that suddenly made my fucking life 1,000% better all of a sudden. My wife has noticed a difference in me. It's just been so much better. It's just hard to quantify how much better I feel now after I've been eating these mushrooms for the last couple of weeks. It's amazing. All right, let me get caught up again here before I ramble anymore. Oh, thank you, Laura. I don't know what I'd do without you, Laura. Well, I do know what I'd do without you. I stumble around looking for my place because nobody ever leaves stop signs unless you're here, because then they feel guilty because they see you doing it. Am I going to name that one? The Big Silver Dollar. I hadn't thought about it, but if somebody wants to throw some ideas out there, I'm terrible at names. The first name that popped into my head was Big Silver. That's fucking stupid. So let's not go with that. Yeah, if you guys want to throw some ideas, maybe we can try. Well, when Land Shark shows up at your front door, are you old enough to know what Land Shark is, Ark? If Land Shark shows up at your front door, don't let him in. Yeah, snails get out of control fast. Yeah, I figured that's what you meant, Shirley. I have angelfish with my pearl gouramis. I always have. I have angelfish with my pearl gouramis. Give us a couple minutes and we'll beat you my pearl gourami tank. I've got an angelfish with my pearls. I've got a discus with my pearls. I've got about 8 or 10 black skirt tetras in there with them, and I have a bunch of loaches in there that go bananas and swim all over the fucking tank and groom the pearl gouramis. You know how you ever seen how loaches get up and they sort of sniff all around on another fish and they get their nose up underneath their fins, and like a lot of the fish either like let them do it because they're cleaning them, or they're like, what the fuck, get the hell away from me. And the gouramis even tolerate that. So the pearl gouramis in my tank have quite a bit of company, and you'll see for yourself here in just a minute. Let me get caught up on some comments, and we'll move to the next tank. Nostradamus. Why Nostradamus? I'm assuming you're talking about the name there, Eugene. Let's see. Yeah, are you still on that schedule, Laura? How long are you going to be doing that? Is that like a job you're on? Yeah, angels can be real dickheads, that's for sure. Try a strobe light for visions. I would not want to look at a strobe light while I was tripping. That would be really, really fucking unpleasant, I think. I don't like flickering, flashing lights and shit like that. I don't even like looking at TV. At least the old school, CR TV with 60 hertz or whatever. I swear, like subconsciously, my brain can see the flickering or something, and I just don't like it. I don't like watching TV when I'm tripping. It's a Gidget. My wife's got a friend named Gidget. Land Shark. No, Land Shark, the sketch from old ass Saturday Night Live back in the 70s. It was a thing. It was an ongoing, recurring skit. Um, Probably dumb when you look at it now, but it was fucking hilarious back then, as were many of the skits that you look back on and go, why was this funny again? But it was funny back then. Never heard of Land Shark beer. That's funny. I wonder if they named it after Jimmy Buffett's got a song about sharks that swim on land. Fins up. I could have listened to Jimmy Buffett. Oh, I listened to the best fucking music tonight. You guys are never going to guess it. I, I listened to the most mushroom music ever tonight. I listened to it last night and it was amazing. It is a 55, Lex. All right, trying to get caught up. All right, Laura, if I don't see you again, I will say good night. Got this contract on the last of September. Well, that'll be here any day now because you know time flies by. It is Jimmy Buffett's beer. I kind of thought that once I put the Land Shark together there. All right, I am caught up. So if somebody wants to stop signing me, you could, and I wouldn't complain. So let's move the camera to the next tank. This is a tank basically full of tetras. I do have a couple of others in here. I got a Synodontis on the bottom. It's a Synodontis lucipennis you may get a glimpse of. There is a chocolate, or not a chocolate, a clown pleco in there. And I got a shark, red-tailed shark in there as well. And yes, I know I need to do the glass, but we need to do this whole tank. I need to do the filter. We need to clean it. We need to get all that fucking Java moss out of there. So this tank is just going to be a project at some point. Don't know if we'll do it on video or not, but I haven't gotten around to doing it yet. So we'll feed this one for a moment. I will. Now the next tank is the Gourami tank. So hang on a couple more minutes, and when we move to the next tank, you'll see my Gourami's tank. Oh, thank you, Eugene. All right. So last night, while I was enjoying my mushroom trip, I was like, what would be good music to listen to? And I was like, oh, I know this will be crazy dumb, but let's see how this is. So I started out just listening to it on my phone, which sounds like listening to it out of a tuna fish can. And I was like, oh, this is so fucking cool. So I put my headphones on, and it was amazing with my headphones on. And it's too isolating. I got to be in the right place to be able to have my headphones on. And last night was not it. I like being aware of my surroundings to some degree. So I got out my little boom box. I have a Bluetooth boom box that's got really deep bass on it. And I set it up right behind me. And I listened to the whole rest of this album. And it was awesome. I fucking loved it. So I listened to it again tonight. And I was enjoying it tonight before I went live again. So it is the most bullshitty, new agey music ever. It is so mushroomy. It was killing me. Yeah, I was gonna say I always like the way Corona. Like nobody ever drinks Corona until they put lime juice in it. Then it's not too bad. When you can't taste the beer anymore, it's not too bad. All right. So I thought that the what I was listening to tonight would have been classified as new age, and so I looked it up, and this is what I read. This just made it so much extra mushroomy when I read it. Yes, band's name music is categorized as fitting within the new age genre, specifically described as ethno-introspective ambient world music. Tell me that's not some mushroom music. Ethno-interest. I had to copy this down because I never would have remembered this. Ethno-introspective, ethno-introspective ambient world music that blends electronic elements with traditional ethnic recordings. The group's work is recognized for this fusion, and some sources classified directly under the New Age label, which is where I would, if I went to the old school record store, I'd go straight to New Age if I was looking for this. So, any guesses as to who I was listening to tonight or what I was listening to tonight? I'm honestly not even sure if that's the band name or the album name. I think it's the band's name, and that was their debut album. It was a 1992 album, and I think it's their debut album was the name of the band, was the name of the album. So see if anybody can guess that one. I was fucking digging it though. It was fun. It was good. So mushroomy. Let's see. All right, Shirley. Margaritaville Brewing Company. I knew he did his own margaritas, and I have actually had a margarita at Margaritaville. I dabble in a lot of different kinds of music there, Kane. This isn't like mushroom music. I say mushroom music just in the sense that like this is the kind of shit like a psychedelic dude kind of listens to. But it's not like music that's meant to sound all trippy and weird and make you hear weird sounds. Because after I listened to this album, I immediately listened to Animals from Animals, which was fucking crazy awesome. I went right into Dark Side. I listened to all of Dark Side, which was crazy awesome, good. And then from there, I went straight into Wish You Were Here. And I listened to all of Wish You Were Here last night before I went to bed. I went upstairs at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I sat down here with all the lights out. I had some oil lamps lit. I had my space heater, which is a kerosene, so it's got fire, and I had all the nice glow of the fire. I had my rainbow light lit. I had my mushroom lamp changing color, so all the basement was changing color on me all night. I had a fucking blast last night. Best Saturday I've had in a long time. Will Smith. No, definitely wasn't Will Smith. yeah. Zini is the fire guy on I'll have to explain that to Zini later. I can explain it now, actually. Before I explain that, I do want to talk about doing research, and I saw some comments there about like people, and I can totally relate to this. I stopped watching other people's YouTube videos and whatnot long ago because I can just go to fucking Seriously Fish or any of the other sites and just it may as well be copy and paste. People just read something off of some site somewhere and then they shoot a video about it as though that's their knowledge, when it's just something they read. And I have often said myself that I do my own research, and I know that's a loaded phrase. We can all have a good laugh at the, Uncle fucking Jack doing his own research, i.e., he read something on Facebook. That's not what I mean. But it is worth having a conversation about, because there's a difference between when I say I'm going to look into something or I've been reading up on something. I don't consider that like doing my own research. That's just reading about other people's research. Research is doing stuff. Research is figuring things out and then writing it down and comparing it to other things and so on. That's research. Reading stuff that other people have done is reading about research. It's not doing the research. So I can say that at some point I got frustrated with what I was reading because it wasn't lining up with what I was seeing. And so I did do my own research. I set up experiments. I deliberately subjected my fish to extremely high nitrate levels. I tried going long periods of time without water changes. I measured all the nitrate levels with plants in the tanks and not plants in the tanks, et cetera, et cetera. Um, so I did do research. I did find these things out for myself. I did gain my own knowledge. And so when I shoot a video and I say this kind of stuff, you know, this is my experience. I can also talk about stuff I've read and stuff I've learned over the years, and it's commonly understood and people say, and that's all be part of the video too. That's fine, because collectively that's share information, and you know, that's the whole point of this. So there's nothing wrong with that. But presenting that as though that's your information that you've acquired by reading somebody else's information, that's not the same fucking thing. So when I try to talk about stuff within fish keeping, I do as much as I can out of my own experience, or I will talk about a study I read, or an article I read, or a conversation I've had with somebody that's got experience in that, or whatever. So I try to be very careful in my word. Rarely do I say things that don't have specific meanings for why I say the things I say. And so I'm particularly careful about how I try to use the term, you know, doing my own research. Because again, reading stuff that other people have done is not doing research, even if it's stuff you read on Facebook. Oh, I have all kind of crazy different. I listened to Fish the other night while I was tripping. I was talking to my wife about. I think I told you guys the other night about like being afraid I was going to be the psychedelic guy, and then she's the one that started singing the goofy song and everything. And I was like, God damn it, am I going to have to start wearing crystals and listening to Fish all the time? And I thought, well, I already listen to Fish sometimes. So I did listen to Fish the other night just for good measure. But that is not who I was listening to tonight. You guys would probably, either you know who I'm talking about or you don't. It's called Deep Forest. So if you want to listen to some really good ethnocentric, you know, world music that's pseudo electronica, but also pseudo, you know, ethnic instruments and ethnic singing and whatever, it's fucking awesome. I mean, it genuinely is really good if you like that kind of music. If you roll your eyes at the idea of like new age ethnocentric music or whatever, then I would give it a pass. But if you're interested in that kind of stuff, or you just curious as to hear what I was listening to, I think if you're old enough to remember the 90s, you will probably have heard some of it. I think probably going to play it on a fucking loop at the Rainforest Cafe. Is Rainforest Cafe still a thing? Facebook is scary. Anabop? Not sure how to pronounce that, but hello. Exactly. As long as it feels true. Any advice for bacterial fungal treatment that is shrimp safe? If you've got the API antifungal, I think that is shrimp safe. I don't see why that would be an issue. And if your shrimp can deal with salt, a lot of times salt will help with that kind of infection. Well, if you give it a listen, Lex, you might have heard them. Anybody born after the 90s, I guess you might have heard it here or there somewhere. But in the 90s, I specifically remember this being fairly popular. Now, I don't ever remember necessarily hearing it on the radio. I don't know too many radio stations that played new wave music. But with the crowd I hung with, it was fairly diverse, and there were a lot of people that wore crystals and fucking, you know, believed in their healing powers and all that kind of stuff. And so I listened to a lot of Deep Forest back in the day. Again, it's good, actually. It really is. Carbon-based life forms. Now, are you Are you making a joke there about other human beings, or is there a band called Carbon-Based Life Forms? Because I've never heard of that. If you can get the API, I don't know if you can, where you are, if you can order medication through the mail or go to your pet store and get it. But if you can get the API antifungal stuff, then you should be fine. That should get rid of it. All right, everybody, we're going to move on, but we are going to come back and do some work in here. We're going to remove this, and we are going to reattach this to this piece of wood down here that it broke loose from. So in the meantime, we will get the 29 fed. So this is a 29 miscellaneous. It's got the angelfish in there. We're going to do some granules again. I have 5 loaches on the bottom, and I'm down to only 2 tetras. I got 1 red and blue Colombian tetra, and I have 1 black skirt tetra left in here. I ought to just scoop that black skirt tetra out and put it in my Gourami tank with the other black skirt tetras and let it live out the rest of its life rather than being in there kind of by itself. I don't think it really matters, but that'd be something to do. I do need to actually resupply this tank with some kind of schooling fish. I've been hesitant because I don't really want to go to PetSmart and just get their same selection of tetras. I really do want to go down House of Tropicals and maybe get some lemon tetras or some black phantoms or just something different, something I haven't had before, and put them here in my 29 miscellaneous. You can see the red, blue Colombians chasing that black skirt all around. I wonder why that is. Never noticed that before. And I do have 1 rubber lip pleco in this tank. A band, nice. No, Deep Forest is definitely not a techno sound at all. You're not even in the right. You're not thinking in the right direction at all. If you think they're going to sound similar, you should check it out, Cornish. You're going to laugh when you listen and go, okay, that's mushroom music. And again, not necessarily like while you're on mushrooms, although it was awesome. It's just the kind of music that that sort of person would listen to. Fix Ick by Fritz is not shrimp safe. Yeah, but I don't know if Ick X would work on, what would you say, a fungal bacterial infection? It might. It's got the malachite green in there. I don't know if that would or not, though. You could try it if you've got some Ick X. Ick X is a very good medicine for sort of all-around general purposes. If you've got just about anything going on in your aquarium, you can usually give it a shot at Ick X and see if that doesn't work first and then move on to something else. So if you do have that, give the Ick X a shot and see if that doesn't clear it up. Yeah, I had a school in there. I used to have 7 of them in here, but they've all died off down to 1. Oh, nice. You can order it. Hey, pond puppies. I don't know what nitrofurazone is. Nice little schooling fish. They're fairly small. All right, I'm whirligigging. I don't know if you guys are whirligigging or not. But I like the red Serpé tetras. If you're looking for a fairly small, they're a little smaller than a black skirt tetra, but they're really red. They're definitely a red fish, and they're a schooling fish. So if you've got like a 55, you could get, 15 or 18 of them, and it would be an impressive little school of these red fish swimming around in it. I don't know how big the tank is. You might have said, but I probably don't remember. All right, we're going to skip the next tank because the glass is so filthy we can't really even see into it anyway. And I do want to get this work done. It's already 9 o'clock, and so we kind of got to keep moving. This is the tank we're not going to really be looking into. It's got a few little minnows swimming around in there, and I do have a couple of discus. You can see one sort of hiding way back here, and I think you can almost kind of make out another one hiding in the bushes back there. But look, you can see how filthy the glass is, so we're not going to bother looking at that one. We will check out my betta fish tank while I also do feed. I do have to actually feed the tank we just looked at, but we're not going to bother doing that on camera. All right, so this is my little betta fish, Gilgalad. There's a couple of guppies in the tank and a bunch of little shrimps in the tank. And a bunch of dead snail shells, if you're wondering what all that white stuff is back in the corner. All right, the minnows are fed. Oh, I got something else interesting to tell you. Well, I don't know how interesting it'll be. I found it interesting, but that's just me. Hang on, let me get caught up on these comments here. All right, I just had some Discord comment I needed to get collected up on there. Oh, thank you, Laura. Excuse me. The best way to get the shells out is a little siphon hose, and then just gently get near the, you don't want to get too close to it. In fact, we are going to be using that siphon hose, and I'll show you in just a minute. Phoenix Raspora, nice. No, it does not involve Godzilla. Definitely does not involve Godzilla. So at the end of my street, we're going to hit on my oil blue dream again. At the end of my street, if you make a left, there's a little bridge you would go over, and it's a heavily trafficked road. There's a store up at the end of the road it's like a packaged goods store. So like the beer trucks and the soda trucks and delivery trucks and stuff go up there. Not huge tractor trailers, but fairly large trucks. A soda truck or a beer truck carries a lot of fucking weight. And so recently we saw some guys down there like in engineer hats, and they were out looking at the bridge and everything. And like the next day there was like cones up and a temporary sign saying that the bridge was closed. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And then within a week or two, like the bridge was like the whole road is blocked off, and they've got all these detour signs up that are they look semi-permanent. These aren't like the sandbags holding them down. These are installed into the ground, like major detour signs. And that road is just closed now. So when I took the walk this evening with my wife, we went down to the end of the street and decided to check it out. And I climbed down into the stream and looked up at the bridge from underneath of it. And let me grab my phone and I'll show you the pictures I took. And I was like, holy shit, no wonder they closed it down in an emergency. So I don't know how long it's going to be closed. I don't know if they had planned to do this or if like they just said, shit, we got to shut it down and we'll figure out where we're going to get the funding later. And maybe it'll be a year or two before they can even get back to working on it or something. I don't know. All right, this is the girder that's facing upstream. And I assume what happens is when it floods, all the silt and stuff gets packed on that bottom edge where that rail is. And then it stays muddy and dirty, and that stays wet and holds moisture, because that is a close-up of what the bottom edge of that rail looks like all the way from one end to the other. And it's literally, you can see it's got a sag to it from one side of the bridge to the other. And that whole bottom rail is just completely rusted off of it. So this whole section here is not even really touching the main part of the support there. And I saw that, I was like, holy shit, no wonder they closed that fucking bridge down. So yeah, that bridge is going to be closed down for a while because that ain't something they're going to fix. They're going to redo that bridge. They probably ought to anyway. It's so long now. We got to update to the larger trucks and whatnot, probably. All right, we're sticking with the granules. The chili rasboras are cool too. If you're into little fish, if you want little tiny fish like that, the raspbora hets have a little red and black on them. Sometimes pork chop rasboras, they're very similar. They've probably been interbred so much now, they're probably interchangeable. But that little raspbora het is a cool little fish. Again, it's not fully red, but it does have red on it. Or ember tetras. They're sort of orangish red, but they're really small too. They're smaller than neons. So you'd have to get a school of about, I don't know, 200 of them in a 55. It would look cool though. And if you see this little spiky point right there, that's a flower. It's technically it's a bract, not a flower, but I call it a flower because it's a flower. You got embers in your 20-gallon, nice. All right, I'm going to run in and get a bucket and my hose, and after we let that feed for a few minutes, we're going to move over to the Gourami tank, and I'm going to do a little bit of maintenance in there, and then we will sit down and have a chat because I definitely feel like my day's starting to catch up to me. My back's starting to hurt, which definitely means the mushroom juice is starting to wear off now. All right, I also have a big ass plant down here. I'm going to have to move out of my way. So I saw a really cool potted plant, and it was pothos, but a lot of times you'll see pothos in planters near the ceiling, and then it hangs down and makes a huge display in the corner of the room or something. This was actually planted in a planter like that and had a pole going up, and the pothos was growing around the pole like a trellis, and it looked like a tree of pothos that didn't go all the way up to the ceiling. And it just looked really neat seeing it growing upwards rather than hanging downwards, because it is a climbing vine in nature. The pothos grows all the way up to the canopy of like the rainforest or wherever. It gets like 120 feet tall and has huge, massive leaves on it and whatnot, and will eventually flower if it does get fully big enough. I once read where every pothos plant you've ever bought in your life has come from the original cutting that was brought back, because unless they're in their native habitat and they're allowed to grow like that, they don't flower and reproduce. And so you just have to reproduce them asexually. And every single pothos plant basically ever has come from that original stock. So I find that pretty interesting. I'm assuming it's true. I don't know that it is, but it sounds true. So we're going to go with it. It feels true. Yeah. All right. We're going to move this out of here. And eventually what I'm going to do is put a bamboo. I have a forest of bamboo out in my backyard, and we are going to cut a big chunk off, and I'm going to cut it to the right size, but I'm going to use the bottom section rather than the thin top section. And where the branches are, I'm going to cut the branches, wider at the bottom and getting consecutively narrower as it goes up, and, make it sort of Christmas tree shaped, and just have that one bamboo as the trellis and allow the pothos to grow on that. And I think that'll be kind of neat, especially if I trim it and shape it so it'll be sort of triangular, Christmas tree shaped, but two-dimensional. Well, obviously it's three-dimensional, but you know what I mean. Works FM 93. Thank you very much. All right, let me explain what we're getting ready to do, and then we'll do it. Mike 93. Nice. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah, if I've had that issue before, you wonder if it's your kidney or something. It kind of hurts in the lower back, sort of off to the side, but only on one side. All right, Cornish, thanks for stopping by and hanging out. Hey, Robert. Well, thank you again. I appreciate the donation. Yeah, Pathos will get huge crazy. Oh, thank you again. Do I know anything about YouTube experience points? Yeah, they're dumb. You get YouTube experience points by chatting, by or giving me money in one way or another. You can either give away gift memberships or you can do super chat, super thanks. That gives you experience points. And presumably, the more money you donate, the more experience points you get. Obviously, that's what it's designed to encourage. And there's really no point to it. I mean, I suppose if I wanted to make some sort of game out of it, like whoever's number one at the end of the live stream gets a special shout out or something. The way it was explained to me from the email YouTube sent me was basically that it's just kind of there so that you all can see it and you all will sort of compete to be number one. Why you would want to be number one just to have the number one next to your name, I don't know. But that's apparently the psychology behind it is you want to be the guy that's got number one behind your name, and so you're going to participate more and so on and so forth. So I can see that working, but I can also see it backfiring. I can see people just chattering, just to put comments out there for the sake of getting comments out there. But it also seems to limit how much experience points you get. I never have really figured out. It doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. I've had people pop into the stream out of nowhere and suddenly have like they're in first place, and I've had other people making comments all night that aren't in first place, but somehow somebody popped in and made one comment and they're in first place all of a sudden. So again, I don't know how it works. I'm not going to spend too much time thinking about it because it's kind of pointless and doesn't really amount to much of anything. All right, so this you will notice is a hose that is not a gravel vac hose. So when you siphon with something like this, you get a really serious suction in the end of the hose. And so if you wanted to go around and collect stuff off the bottom, you want to come in very gently and get near the bottom because you will suck gravel out of there so fast. And those shells, I was asked earlier about how to get the dead snail shells out of the tank. Come in, you get like within a half an inch of it and it'll lift right up and get sucked out. Try to do them one at a time. If you get too many going in at once, you get clogs and you run into issues and that sort of thing. And then try not to get too close to the gravel because you will just suck the gravel right out of the tank too. On the other hand, if you're trying to get gravel out of a tank, this is a good way to do it. You can actually do water changes and just siphon some gravel out every time you do it, as long as you do it gently. Again, you don't want to get the gravel jammed up in the hose, but you can actually do that. So let me get this siphon started, and then we're going to get in here and work some of this stuff out. All right, which end goes in the tank? This end goes in the tank. I put the wrong end in the tank. Hold on, let me switch this around. This end goes in the tank. I only say that because this end is a little straighter than this end. This end's really curled, and it's hard to work with when I'm trying to get around corners and stuff, although you'd think that would work better. All right, that's what I meant to do. So I'm trying to scrape some of the cyanobacteria out, some of the larger chunks that are going to be easier to get. And I'm also trying to remove a bunch of this Java moss. And if you kind of get it in there and tear it, it comes off and gets siphoned right on out of the tank. And it's kind of like doing a Floby haircut. And don't get too focused on what's going on in the tank, because it's real easy to overflow your bucket if you're not paying attention. All right, we're going to call that good. And that is actually going to just get dumped right down my toilet, believe it or not. I'm going to flush all that stuff right down out of there. I'm also, while we're here, we're going to get in here and pull the filter off, because that's always covered with moss. I don't know if you can notice how much the filter just started pumping again. I'm going to pull that off of there. We've actually got flowing water now. All right, so all we got to do is fill that back up, and we're going to call that good. Now I want to get that tied in there too. Let me go get a piece of twine. I have cotton string over here. This could possibly be what the issue is. I use cotton twine, and if it decomposes too quickly, then the stuff hasn't attached yet. All right, so let's see what this looks like. It's going to go in there. Let's put it in there this way. All right, let's see if I can do this. Let's tie it into a loose knot first. And then I can slip it over the piece of wood and cinch it down, I think. Oop, putting it in there backwards. Hang on. All right. I missed. I tied it down, but I didn't tie it to the piece of wood. All right, let me open that back up. Hopefully without destroying the damn root system. Oh, damn, how hard is this to untie? All right, let's try this again. All right. One more loop. This tank smells good. It smells earthy. It smells like fresh water. All right. Now, I do need to get in there I really stuck my face in there, it was splashing. From this was splashing right up into my face. I do still need to get in there and get those pieces of string cut off, but I'm not going to do that right now. We are going to throw a hose in there and fill it back up. But you can see this piece of woodwork now. Here, let me close the door. So you can actually see that looks like wood now, and eventually that Java moss will start growing back and cover that over again. But we'll get in there again and do another water change and get a bunch of that out of there. So you enjoy the view for a moment. I'm going to go get the hose and stick it in there, and we'll start filling it back up. All right. Not going to do anything special. Just run a little bit of water in there. Pull a little bit of this Java fern. Move. Poor Discus is hiding under the power head as I'm doing this. It's freaking him out. All right. Going to put a little bit of hot water in there just so that it's not freezing cold water. I did a top off on the Discus tank the other day, and I was running the water right into the end where the thermometer is, and it brought the temperature down 3 degrees at that end of the tank. I'm sure within minutes of me stopping and the water circulating around the tank, I'm sure the temperature came right back up. I only put a few gallons of water. Well, I don't know. It's a 125, and I put about an inch of water in the top. And I have well water, so after the water runs for a few minutes, it's basically groundwater, 55 or 56 degree temperature water going into the tank. So I brought the temperature down a little bit. Even if it didn't bring it down several degrees, it still brought it down enough that I was hoping it would really start the Discus into spawning again, but it seems not to have. All right. We got my mushroom light turned on. I'm going to find my rainbow. Here's my rainbow. All right, and I'm going to stand here and watch this thing fill up so that I don't get distracted and let it overflow on me. Now, let's see, where were we? Yeah, cherry barbs are another good, really deep red one. I do like the cherry barbs. Let's see, going through a lot. Well, you're certainly welcome to hang out and spend the evening with us. Raccoon eyes. Oh no, I'm so sorry to hear it. All right, Laura, if you're still there, I will say good night. And the tank is almost done, so hang on a minute. I have thoughts on natural tanks and all that. If you want to talk about father fish, we can talk about father fish. Let me turn that water off before we hear the gentle, merry cascade of tinkling water on the floor. And now we can sit down and relax. Let me put this hose away. And then we will be done the work for the night. We're done. And I'm going to bring in my last little bit of hash oil and we'll do a dab. Because why not? I got to make more. I don't really have any more weed though. I'm not going to have any weed for a while now that I'm thinking about it. It's going to be almost a month before my next plant's done. And all I've got is like an eighth, maybe a quarter. I don't know how much it is. It's a little jar of weed. For me, that's not a lot. Certainly not a fucking month's worth. And it's certainly not enough to go making a big batch of hash oil and then still having some weed left over. Oh, you can't see my mushroom from here. There's my mushroom. It's color changing. All right, that's what I like to see. Shed 15 people when it's time to sit down. All right, let me get over here. Turn this light on. All right. Those are pearl gouramis. Fungus growing on your moss, and it was what was growing on your fish. I'm not sure about that. I would definitely, if you've got stuff that's actually on your fish physically, I would definitely try using some ICX. Again, it works on a lot of different stuff, so I don't know exactly what you've got going on, but ICX would be where I'd start. And then see if you can't figure out what's actually happening. I'm going to get this camera positioned properly here one of these days. How's that? That's good enough. Should you ditch your 15 and get a 20 gallon? I don't know. That's up to you. I mean, I personally like a 20 long. I think a 20 long is a good sized tank. A lot you can do with a 20 long while still being a fairly small tank. Now, it does have a larger footprint than a standard 20. This is a standard 20 right there. And so the 20 long is about 6 inches longer than that, but it's also considerably shorter than this. But they're good tanks. I like the 20 longs. I have one up in my office. If you got the room for it, I'd say go for the 20 long over the 15. Exactly. I got to buy more mushrooms because I'm out of weed. Aqua Balls, how are you this evening? So how do I feel about natural tanks? It depends on what you mean by natural, and there's a whole conversation to be had about how natural. I like naturalistic tanks. I like my tanks to look very natural, but at the same time, I'm not pretending that they're fully self-sustaining ecosystems that I never have to do anything with. I don't have to do a lot with them, but I do still have to do maintenance on them. I do get in there and clean the glass. I still get in there and vac out, excessive detritus occasionally. I do water changes once in a while. But even a tank full of discus, I only do a water change. I don't even know when the last time we did a water change on this tank was. Now, when I do the water changes, because of my water chemistry, I'm able to do very large water changes without shocking the fish or changing my water chemistry very much. And so when I do a water change, I usually make them count. I'll take this tank all the way down to here and then refill it. So I'm doing 70% water changes. And I do that generally in all my tanks because, again, the water, I don't have any tanks that have like specialized water in them. And so when I do a water change, do one, make it count. And so that's what I generally do. I don't do them often, but when I do them, I make them count. Do I recommend? I don't see. When we get into the natural part, when we get into the father fish aspect of it, it always comes down to the scooping up the handful of muck and throwing it in your tank. Would you do that? No, I would not do that. But at the same time, I'm fully aware that I kind of do that. Um, I don't have any problem with finding wood in a river, or I've pulled wood out of the mud on the side of the road before. Just packed literally in the mud on the side of the road, and just come home. And I usually squirt it off with the hose, and I get any physical debris off of it, any mud and muck and stuff like that. I'll sort of go over it with my hands. I'll find any spots on it that are like soft and rotten, and I'll get like a wire brush and I'll brush down until all the soft rotten stuff's gone, and I get it down to solid wood, and then it goes in my tank. I don't boil it or anything like that. Same with rocks. All these rocks that you see in all my tanks or whatever, I found them in streams. I brought them home. I rinsed them off. I gave them a good wiping with my hands in the stream to get all the mud and stuff off, and then they come home and they go in my tanks. So is it a handful of muck out of the bottom of a pond? Not really, but at the same time, it's not sterile conditions. Now, would I do that in a tank that's fully established like this with my discus? Would I just go out and grab a piece of wood and throw it in this tank? No, I don't think I would do that. But my tank's got established with, we can call it live rocks, or we can call it live wood if you prefer. If you know anything about saltwater fish keeping, live rocks are basically your biofilter. There's biology living on the rocks that deals with all your nitrogen cycle and all that kind of stuff. And so whatever biology was all over those rocks came home into my tanks. So my tanks have biomes in them that are unique to those tanks. They've grown from the different stuff that I've put in there from different locations. Some stuff out of my yard has gone in there. And so whatever microbial life I've introduced into my tanks that has grown to be alive in my tanks, and I'll grant you some of that's probably cyanobacteria and algae, but also a whole lot of other stuff, microworms, microcrustaceans, all sorts of bacteria and microbial life that will then thrive in this aquatic environment and be part of my nitrogen cycle and part of my, I'm just saying nitrogen cycle in that sort of umbrella term. It's part of the biology of the tank, and that's part of what helps it function as an ecosystem. Is it a fully self-sustaining ecosystem? No, but it is an ecosystem. It's not just water with fish in it, and then you got to change the dirty water every now and again. I've got a whole cycle of stuff going on in here, and all the bacteria and all the cultures and everything that are in there is part of what made that happen. And so I do agree with father fish in the sense that I do like the allowing the tank to do as much of the work as possible. But I like tanks that have a lot of fish in them. I like a lot of activity. I like feeding my fish. And you just can't do that if you're going to have that sort of self-sustaining ecosystem. That is something you can do, but it's a fairly sophisticated setup. It usually requires a very, very low stocking density, a lot of plants, and very light feeding. You let the fish feed on what's in the tank already, and you add as little food, if any, as you can. And that becomes its sort of fully self-sustaining ecosystem. I'm not interested in that. I like having a tank full of fish. I got all these big ass tetras and discus in here. Or discus tetras? No, discus are cichlids. I got a lot of stuff going on here. I could not just let this tank just do its thing forever. I have to do maintenance on it. Now, do I have to do a lot of maintenance on it? No. As I said, I let the tank do as much as possible, but that's within reason. I do still have to maintain it. I am adding food to it. If I'm adding food to it, that means I'm putting nitrogen and nitrogenous compounds, proteins. If I'm adding that to the tank, that's going to be building up in the tank. And at some point, I have to remove that. The plants are only going to do so much. So I'm with him on that. I'm definitely with him on the idea that your fish aren't these delicate little snowflakes that if you look at them too hard, they're going to die. Look at fish in the wild and the environments they live in and what they do. Again, people are shocked that I have discus. in with plants, and they're people the other night were mentioning how it was interesting to see the discus feeding off of the bottom. That's what they do in their natural environment. They swim in between the roots and flooded forests, and they pick through the leaf litter on the bottom, of the forest. Why anybody thinks a discus can't live in a tank that looks like this is beyond me. I've never understood why people think a discus can't live in a tank with other fish, and they're fish. They're not, again, they this is the kind of environment they would live in their natural environment. Not just a big empty bare glass box. Have you ever noticed one of those kind of discus tank? All the discs huddled together up in a corner somewhere. Mine behave like fish because they're in a comfortable environment. So I am very much into the naturalisticness of father fish, but where we disagree is that I don't think it's, I also don't think it's a beginner tank. And the other aspect where I disagree with father fish is I don't think it's the way you have to do a fish tank. You can do a fish tank however you like. There's a lot of different ways to do fish tanks. And depending on what you're interested in and what your tastes are, what your schedule's like, what the amount of effort you're willing to put into it, there's 1,000 considerations to make. And you're free to make those and come up with whatever type of fish tank you'd like to do rather than what he says you're supposed to do. And so I disagree with him on those kind of mentalities as well. But other than that, I'm down with the natural tank for the most part. I do tend to prefer that over the very artificially looking tank. All right, let me do a hit and then I will get caught up here. And I will say on one final thought, I don't like those tanks, and this is my personal opinion. If you have a tank that looks like this and you like it, great, have at it. I don't care. I don't like the look of a tank that always looks as though it was just set up. Everything in it is always shiny clean. I was watching somebody do a water change the other day on a fish tank, and they were pulling all the ornaments out and they were scrubbing all the ornaments down and making them look all new and putting them back in. I saw them pull they had the plants in little pots, and they were pulling the plants out and wiping all the leaves down and rinsing the leaves off and putting them back in. Just when it's starting to look good, they fucked it all up by cleaning everything off and making it look all brand new again. It looked like they just set the tank up again. And I really don't like that look. I like a tank that looks lived in. I like a patina on a tank. I like to see growth in a tank, I don't want it overgrown with algae. That looks like garbage. That looks like shit. I need to get in there and wipe all that glass down. I understand that. This looks gorgeous. This looks amazing to me. It's just a beautiful tank. And if you look in there really close, you see algae and cyanobacteria growing on stuff. You'll see loam and detritus and stuff down in the bottom of the tank. It's an aquatic environment. It looks like an aquatic environment. It looks like a place that fish live. You ever stuck your head in underwater in a stream outside? It's not clean. It's not dirty in the sense that it's unhealthy, but it's not clean in the sense that somebody just like polished all the rocks and swept all the dirt out of the water. A natural environment has stuff in it and has things growing in it and whatnot. And I like that balance. It has to look natural, but it also has to be within reason because it is a fish tank. It's not a river. It's not a lake or a pond. It is a fish tank. And so I want that balance between looking natural, but being a fish tank, and finding that sweet spot wherever that works for you, is up to you. All right, let me see where I was now. I got a lot of catching up to do. There we go. Let's see. Got to meet a wealthy discus. A wealthy discus Gabriel. Spoke about discus in a monthly club meeting. Deep dirt substrates. Oh, glad to hear it, Aquaballs. Smell like Fireball. Nice. I don't have a lot of experience with Fritz products, so I don't really know what to tell you on that. I would try again. If you can get ICX, I would try ICX. It's it works on a lot of different stuff. It's a combination of malachite green, formalin, and something else that I can't remember at the moment, but all of those do multiple things. It doesn't only work on ick. It works on fungal infections, bacterial infections, other, external parasites. It does a lot of stuff. It's a good product. So I would try that. Yeah, I clean it in the sense of like I wipe it off. I get all the crud and dirt, and the mud and stuff, and then it goes in my tank. I don't sterilize anything or boil anything or anything like that. Most of the rocks, oh, thank you. Most of the rocks, hey, Bob, came from Graves Run. There's a little stretch of Graves Run I know that's just really just lousy with beautiful rocks. You're not really supposed to take them there from there, but I did. It's not reservoir property, so it's not actually poaching. Remember, any state park, reservoir area, all the reservoirs in Maryland are treated as though you have to follow the same rules as a state park, and you're not allowed to take anything out of a state park. Nothing. If you find a shiny rock on the ground that you like, you cannot pick that up and put it in your pocket and walk out of there. Am I going to rat you out if you do? Of course not. But legally, you're not allowed to do that. So just be mindful of where you collect your rocks and stuff. Having said that, a lot of the rocks and the woodwork and stuff out of here has come out of Pretty Boy Reservoir. Some of my best, that huge piece of wood down there came out of Pretty Boy Reservoir. I don't think anybody give a shit if I took a piece of driftwood out of there, but legally I'm not allowed to do that. And so just be mindful if you do that. But Graves Run is where a lot of that came from. And there's another stream. I know the stream. I just don't know the name of the stream. And then Murphy's Run is across the street from my house. That's a little stream that runs down my road. And so I've gotten a lot of shit out of Murphy's Run over the years too. Oh, I never use UV sterilization either. Yeah, there's a lot of, that's a very beginner fish keeping thing to do, I think, is scrubbing everything down. Laura's back. Father Fish is awake again. Let's see. 5 ounces, nice. Oh, Jack Herrera. I've never actually had Jack Herrera before. Thought about buying seeds and growing it, but I never have. Let me know what you think if it's worth growing. It's legendary, so it probably is. Some autoflower, nice. I'm not a big fan of the autoflowers. Oh, if you're in Los Angeles, I would imagine you can grow them outside. Some sour diesel, nice. My Super Silver Haze is rapidly becoming one of my favorite strains. My all-time favorite strain, though, is still Hawaiian Puff. You just can't beat it. It's amazing. All right, I might have to go get my bong or something. I did say I was going to do a dab, so let's do a dab. This bowl is just getting clogged up. I'm drawing on as hard as I can, and I'm just not getting a hit off of it. So I got a little tiny bit of hash oil left, and we're going to go ahead and do a dab of that. And this is Blue Dream hash oil. And if you're just joining us, I have ordered a mushroom grow kit. And so I am going to be trying my hand at growing magic mushrooms. So that should be pretty interesting. I've been growing my own weed for almost 20 years. Yeah, almost 20 years now. So I'm going to give the mushrooms a shot. There we go. That was a hit. Yeah, Art did call it. Excuse me. Oh, thanks, Mike. I set that merch stuff up years ago, and I haven't even thought about it since. I don't think anybody's ever bought anything from it. I think one or two people have bought something. I think one month I got like $12 or something. That never really worked out. It was kind of spur of the moment thing. I never really wanted to be a merch salesman. Mac Tonight talks about the Blue Dream. Interesting. Oh, I know Mac Tonight. Mac Tonight is actually based on an old Bobby Darin song called Mac the Knife, about a mobster that cuts people up with a straight razor. So yeah, Mac Tonight is a play on Mac the Knife. Yeah, I'm definitely into my I'm going to be a mycologist. This is my mycology era. It started to turn and then it started to veg again. Are you growing outdoors or indoors? Because if you're growing outdoors and you're doing an auto, that would probably be the way to go. I grow indoors, and so I'm really limited on space. And so by flowering the ones that are photosensitive, I can choose how big I want them to be once I know their growing habits, and I can force them to flower and have them top out right at exactly as tall as I want them to be. Actually, we got a little bit of time. Let's go have a look at my big tent tonight. I haven't actually looked in this tent yet today. It might need watering. And so for that reason, I don't like the auto flowers. But if you're growing outdoors, then the autoflower might not be a bad idea. All right. Well, everything's still looking good. So, as far as I know, everything in there, all four of those are Super Silver Haze. So, I got, I don't know, 3 weeks left on this one, almost a month left on this one. And that's the next plant I have done. Actually, you know what? I think I might have some other plants that might be done sooner. I have some plants that had mites on them again. All my vegging stuff had mites on it again. I just did another, I just took them all outside and sprayed everything down with insecticidal soap again yesterday, because these all had fucking mites all over them. Again, mites in my, like spider mites on my plants is like the cyanobacteria in my tanks. I've just come to live with dealing with it. I do my best. So all three of these actually had mites on them, but I'm pulling all the leaves off as I see them, and I'm spraying them. And so these won't be good for going and, smoking as buds probably, but I will get something off of them that'll be good enough that I can make hash oil out of them. And I don't know, I might get some baggable stuff. This one in the middle is my best looking one out of the bunch, but that's the one that actually had the mites on it. So they're all going to be done, I think, about the 8th of next month. So yeah, right around the beginning of September, these will be done. So that's the next stuff I've got to look forward to, is the beginning of September. And then this is all the weed I got left. That's it. This is my last of my Blue Dream. But it is fully cured and everything now, so that's good. At least it tastes nice. So the next thing we will be trying our hand at is growing the mushrooms. So I looked around, and it was really hard to find a place that actually sold everything all in one kit. There's a ton of places out there that do. First of all, there's a ton of places out there that grow like edible mushrooms, like the lion's mane and shiitake and stuff like that. There's a place in Baltimore City. You can get all the stuff and the spores and all the equipment to grow it and everything there. But that's all they sell, is like that kind of stuff. Online, there's a bunch of different places that sell grow bags. They're specially sealed and sterile on the inside. They have an injection port where you stick a hypodermic through it, and it's self-sealing when you remove it, so it stays sterile. But you have to buy the syringe full of spores somewhere else. And I finally found a place today that sells like a whole starter kit. You can pick your spores, you can pick the bag you want, you can make the whole kit, and then buy it all as one unit. And that's what I did. So I got Golden Teacher spores. It's supposed to be one of the easier to grow. So if you're just getting started with growing, the Golden Teacher is a good one to go with. It also is supposed to be a very, very pleasant, very visual, introspective, just really good buzz. So Golden Teacher is what I got, and it was only like an extra $8 to get the 5-pound bag instead of the 3-pound bag. It's like a big ass grow bag. And so the idea, I think you inject the spores and you let it sit in the dark and you wait. And when you can see the mycelium, like the white stuff growing through the soil a little bit or through the medium, I think at that point you shake the bag up and mix it all around, and then you wait. And then after like 2 weeks, you move it into an area and open it up, and you should get the big flowering bodies, and all the mushrooms and everything will come up off of it. So I should get several ounces of mushrooms coming up in this bag all at once. Now, whether I can just close it back up and maybe will it re-sprout new mushrooms, I don't know. I get the impression it's going to be a one-shot deal. Once they sprout, it'll be done. And if I want to do it again, I'll have to order another bag. I don't know. I'll look into seeing if I can just take some of the spores and just tap some of the spores onto some soil and see if I can just get some mushrooms to come up. You never know. The only thing I'd be afraid of is if some other mushrooms came up with the mushrooms because of, it's just my soil that I've made, and I'm, who knows what kind of mushrooms might come up in that. So the sterile bag that you inject the spores into seems a little safer. And again, I paid less than $100 for the whole kit, shipping and everything. And so if I get several ounces of mushrooms for $100, that's a pretty good deal. So I don't know. We'll see. It'll be a week or two before it even ships. So or I get it, I guess. I think they said 3 to 5 business days before it ships. Yeah, I know who Mac the Knight is. You probably can ship mushrooms in the mail, but it's not legal. Yeah, I don't think the ICX will hurt the shrimp, and I know it doesn't bother the snails. I don't think he was all that popular back in the day. Yeah, that's a pretty hard trip. Hell yeah, that's awesome. Spider mites. Yeah, that's a hard trip. Wow. I'm not into Dragon Ball. I'm not that into anime. Most of my fish come from PetSmart and Petco. I do have a place called House of Tropicals that I get them from, but that's like a 45-minute drive, and I don't get down there very often. Although, honestly, I haven't been to any fish store, even my PetSmart, in several years. In and out for dinner. Nice. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. All right, Zini. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. I haven't been having any kind of I don't feel drunk on the mushrooms at all. I get a little bit of body stuff that happens at first, and you feel kind of weird. And then that sort of goes away, and then it just becomes more heady than anything. And it's just, I don't know. Again, I don't know how to describe a trip, but I haven't been taking a lot of it. I've been taking enough that I can feel it. I'm having a good time, but I've been getting again, last night I was sitting there giggling to myself and I realized like this is if you ever read about mushrooms, they tend to say that it brings on like intense euphoria and joy. And that's what I felt last night. Like joy was just a great way to describe how I felt last night. And that's not something you feel very often. Happiness, fun, laughter. There's a lot of things that you can say that you're doing, but aren't joy and like just joyful. And that's just how I felt last night. I felt euphoric. Just all was right with the world. I felt at peace with myself. I was just enjoying the moment. I was just centered and focused. I had a really good time last night. And again, that wasn't a hard trip. I wasn't seeing bendy shapes or color changing or anything like that. But it was the most I've taken in one go in the last couple of weeks since I've been on this little mushroom kick that I've been doing. So last night was a pretty solid trip, but I wasn't there. I wasn't like tripping. So I'm ready to go there. So we'll see what happens this upcoming week when I get some more. Hey, Rosie. If you're asking is what the plants we were just looking at, that is weed. But if you're asking me about my experiences, I'm talking about magic mushrooms, not weed. I think I said hello, Rosie. So, like I said, we'll see how it goes. I do want to do the what you suggested is leaving a few of the mushrooms in there to just let them die back and just do their thing, and then just wait and see if I don't get another set of mushrooms coming up in a few weeks or something. I don't know, but if I can get it so that it's just reciprocal and just keeps going, that would be really awesome. All right, let's do one more dab. It's about all I got left in here. And then I think I'm going to start winding down for the night. It is a Sunday night after all. And it is getting close to 10 o'clock, and I have not eaten dinner now that I'm thinking about it. Down to 192 pounds, though. That's another thing. I've stopped my obsessive snacking and eating. I've lost about 6 or 7 pounds since I've started eating the mushrooms. I've been working out more regularly. I haven't been taking my afternoon nap anymore. I just feel like a new man. All right, that was either going to be 2 really small ones or 1 huge one. Guess which one I opted for. All right, that was the end of my dab. So let's go put this shit away so I don't have to do it later. And while I'm standing up, we may as well get on into first positions here. Man, I told you that was a big one. All right. Turn you this way. I'm going to go ahead and get my mushroom in the background so we can have a little mushroom nest. All right. Anna Bop is asking what website is that? Are you asking like I don't what are you asking me? What website is what? Um, all right. Thank you. Um, when I first got the mushrooms themselves, and I was taking like between gram and a gram and a half, and then maybe like an hour and a half later, I'd eat a little more. And so I was in the neighborhood of 2 grams total, but not all at once. The stuff I've been consuming most recently is a syrup that I got from this website, and I've just been taking just little swigs of the syrup. I threw the bottle away already. But last night I took like a mouthful of the syrup. It was probably more than a tablespoon. I was like, I had to it was like swallowing a whole mouthful of Robitussin. And so that rolled on to me pretty solid because I took it all at once rather than doing multiple doses that were spaced out. But I liked the syrup. I liked the way it came on to me. I liked the length of time it lasted. It was lengthy but not exhaustive. The chocolate bars I got was a really interesting buzz, but it lasted forever. I mean, I tripped for like 10 or 12 hours off of the candy bar, the chocolate bar I got. But it was good. It definitely was potent. And their dosing on the back that told you how many squares to eat for where you wanted to be. It was fairly accurate. I ate 6 squares was the most I ever ate at once, and that was medium mild. And maybe if I ate 9 or 10 squares, that'd have been a pretty fucking solid trip. But the most I ever ate at once was 6 squares, so it was pretty good. The website that I get the mushroom stuff from is Treehouse. It's TRE House. Just look up Treehouse mushrooms or whatever, and I can vouch for everything I've gotten from them is pretty legit. I wasn't real satisfied with the vape. The vape by itself didn't do a whole lot, but if I was already tripping, then I puffed on the vape. It was these little bumps. I could definitely feel it, bumping the mushrooms up a little bit. So interesting, but I wouldn't buy the vape again. The syrup I liked, and the chocolate bar I liked, and I did not try the gummies. The golden teachers. Oh, if you have a trip like that, you got to get back on the horse. Well, if you actually eat the mushrooms themselves, you will sort of get upset to your stomach, especially if you eat a lot of them. It's really hard to digest. I made tea out of the last batch. When I got the mushrooms, I had been eating them. And then I decided with the very last little bit I had, I made tea out of it. And the tea was so much better. It was so much better. Not only did I extract more of the mushroom goodness out of it, it was smooth. It was easy as hell to drink. It just went down. It tasted like lemon and honey. And it just came on smooth, no upset stomach. I just rolled through it. It was awesome. I will never eat mushrooms again if I can avoid it. I will make tea out of it. It was easy. It takes about 20 or 30 minutes to let it sit and strain it, drink it, and you're good to go. And if anybody asks, I can tell you how I made the tea before we wind up. It's only 10 o'clock. I mean, it's not even 10 o'clock. So if you want to know how I made the tea, I found a good recipe and I followed it, and it worked really well. I'll just tell you anyway. I didn't use hot water. There's debate about whether heat destroys the psilocybin or not. So if there's controversy about it, I'm not going to worry about it because it's not necessary. So I'm not going to do it. If it was necessary, then that's different, but it's not. I go live every Friday night and Sunday night publicly at 8 p.m. And then if you want to join the channel for $2.99 a month, I do a members only live stream on Wednesdays at 8 o'clock too. But you got to join the channel, not my Patreon. You got to go to my YouTube channel and actually join a channel membership. But that'll also get you access to Discord. I have a Discord server, and you got to be a member to get to that too. So $2.99 a month, and you get all that. But what I did with the tea, the way I made the tea was I put the mushrooms in my weed grinder and I ground it into ground mushrooms, so it was really, really chopped up fine. I squeezed a slice of lemon juice onto it and got it wet, but not in like standing lemon juice. You just basically want to stir it around and get it wet with lemon juice. I let it sit for a couple minutes, soaking with the the acids in the lemon juice, and then I put that much water in the glass, and I just let it float. And cold water right out of the tap, and just let it float. And every now and again, stir it around, and I let it sit for about a half an hour. Poured it through a coffee strainer, and then squeezed. Got all the water and everything out of it, and you'll have like this pale, yellowy brown looking tea. And then I mixed some honey in it. And so, because of the lemon to start with, and then once I mixed the honey in, it kind of tastes like lemon water with honey in it, and it had just a little hint of mushroominess on the back end of it, but you barely noticed it. It was just like lemon water with honey in it, and it was as simple as that. And it was such a good experience. I look up recipes when I need to, and so that's the way I made it. I watched a video. A guy did a demonstration between doing it with like hot water and doing it with like tea. Because a lot of people do that. They like will brew tea and then they'll put chamomile in it, or they'll put like a Lipton's tea bag in with it to mask the flavor, and they'll just boil the whole mushrooms and everything. And none of these looked like they were really efficient ways of doing it. And I saw this guy, he was wearing a lab coat, and that's what got me. You're wearing a lab coat, then you got to know what you're talking about, so he explained it. He talked about the science behind it and everything. Showed side by side. The one that he made with the cold water had like blue fucking coloration in it, whereas the other one was just pale tan color. And I was like, all right, I know it does, just because you're seeing it doesn't necessarily mean anything. You can't see the chemicals necessarily. But the side he used the lemon juice and clearly extracted more stuff out of those mushrooms than the other side did. And so that's the recipe I went with, and I will go with it again. I recommend it. It really worked well. It was good. So, all right. Any final thoughts? Any last comments? Anything on your mind before we go? It is now about 10 o'clock. So I can start wrapping it up. And then don't forget, I'll be back Wednesday for my members live stream, or publicly I'll be back next Friday. Oh, that fucking working. That's all the smoke I got out of that. So, all right, I'm going to go put this away too while I'll give you your last couple of moments to say goodnight or whatever. Have me a swig of tea. All right, everybody, I'm getting ready to leave. So if you want to say goodnight or whatever, now's your time to do it. I really mean it. I'm not kidding this time. There we go. All right, Art. We will see you on Wednesday. Bob, see you on Wednesday. Phoenix moss. I don't know what Phoenix moss is, but that sounds pretty cool. One of these days, I'm going to get some Christmas moss and try that. I don't know if I'll really be able to tell the difference between the Christmas moss and my Java moss, though, to tell you the truth. Maybe I'll get it and we'll find out. So, all right, everybody. On that note, I am going to call it. I did find a cookbook for mushroom recipes online, and there was a whole article about how I know some people say that cooking, the heat destroys the molecule, but I'm here to say, like, I do these recipes and they work. And I've read other stuff that says you can't heat it, or heating it, even to the temperature of making tea. Boiling water will even start destroying the molecule. So I don't know. So, but there are recipes out there. You can find an actual mushroom cookbook. All right, listen to, if you're not familiar with it, listen to Bobby Darin sing Mac the Knife. It'll be some culture for you, some some old ass music from back in the day. It's a cool song, though, it really is. All right, everybody. On that note, I will say good night, and I will see you either Wednesday or Friday, depending on who you are. Good night.